Go too much detail on this one about Bitcoin, so I think I'll do that maybe later once I've seen whether this one works. And then I'll have a look. So I'll have a quick look at alts and see what the alt charts are doing, because obviously we've had these huge wicks on Friday, and now things are just settling down, and it's the wicks are actually going to make it incredibly hard to trade a lot of alts. So hi, I can see a couple of people have joined. If you have any alt requests, please hit me up. Let's just look at the others chart. So the others chart gives us the sort of better idea of what alts are doing. I'm getting a high computer load detected, so if there's any issues, please also let me know, the people who've joined. Okay, so others, for a long time, I've saved all my drawings on this because this took way longer than I wanted to play out, but since back in, I think even in January, February, when we started coming down, I said there was a risk here that we had a macro double top, then we had a local double top, and a possibility of a head and shoulders. So we had the macro double top came in here, so I was starting to get bearish there. And then the whole grind up that we've had here since when, like March, April, the bottom, has just been painful really. And a lot of people were getting bullish here, and it was pretty hard. It took so long, and I was sort of trying to fight everybody else's opinions on this, because you have scenarios like down here. I should actually put my mouse cursor on to make it easier to see. Don't know if I got it set up yet, though. I'll try and remember oh yes, I do. Here we go. So for example, down here you have these scenarios when you get these grinds that do end up in a big breakout. So I was starting to question myself here as to whether this was going to be one of those grinds. Like, the context is very different. This was, for a start, this had already corrected fairly significantly, had a long time in accumulation. This had corrected as well. However, this support wasn't a good support. And if you followed me previously, you'll know that this is what I would call a demand zone. And it had come back down and tested it once, wicked quite heavily into it, gone up, but been barely able to make another significant high. So then when it comes all the way back down here, I don't expect this support to hold particularly. So we then had this very slow grind up out of here, and then I was expecting this drop off at the end, and I can show that from the thousands of drawings that I've saved back here. So I had, for example, the head and shoulders. I've been drawing this head and shoulders, and I did draw it back here, and I was again hoping we'd get the drop much earlier. So that was the head and shoulders prediction. Then that was group one. So then this was back to looking at, I think back at this time we had the possibility of a channel, which you can see with the green line at the top, or the possibility of triangles. So I was looking at, if we're going to break through this, retest and go up and come back into this supply and test up here, which is what eventually happened. Or at that point in time, I think probably around July, I would have been drawing this, that the bearish scenario that we would go into a triangle and just fall off. And in fact, the total E100 chart did, the total excluding the top 100 chart did, but the others chart was stronger because the majors were stronger. So this pushed higher, but again, you can see the scenario that I was drawing was this channel, rising channel, which is a bearish pattern. If we've had a drop, we're expecting, and that's the B wave. You had the drop is the A wave, then you've got the B wave where people FOMO back in, which is exactly what happened. All retail got really excited, thinking new all-time high, alt season, etc., etc., and then we get this drop. So yeah, that was predictions, I guess, around July. What's group two? Yeah, it's the same. I think this was even earlier that I was saying, okay, we would get, it was again looking at this A, B, C. Can't really see it as well with the black on there, but looking at the C wave coming up into there, you can see I've had the circle drawn, and then having a drop from there. So anyway, this is just tooting my own horn, and that was the final one from July. But the real difficulty with this was the timing. So while I've had all the predictions, and as I said, even since the drop, I was saying that I thought this would probably be a head and shoulders, and I've had all the predictions, this grind for the last however many months, or since July, has just been extremely painful. And then obviously it happened very suddenly on Friday, fell off a cliff, and there were various signs of that happening. I had said on a lot of the majors and things like that I was worried about this trend line that we did have. I can go and look at the others dominance chart. There was a support level in here that hadn't been tested. I think a 3-week zone, and on the others dominance chart, which is similar to this, but which could have at least gotten a little bit of a bounce up off it, but yeah, they just ended up with this blast through it. The problem we now have on alts is that they've got, they've all got these giant wicks that have run through many zones, and in many cases have hit zones that I wanted to hit previously. The problem with this one particularly is it hasn't hit where I wanted it to hit. So if I wanted it down here in order to be remotely bullish again, and even better all the way down here, and I don't know if that one's realistic, given that would mean the market had got 90% down of capital gone out of the market. But I don't see why not. I've been saying for a long time that that I think the market's different. That a lot of people have been talking about alt season, and for the last 2 years I've been saying this. If anyone's new to me, that we had these. I've been around since 2017. Before 2017, well, actually no, I think I got in first around here. And we had this great alt season, then we had another great alt season in 2021. But to say from a TA perspective that we're going to have another alt season that mimics these, firstly, you've only got a sample size of 2, so there's no reason it's going to be the same as it was before. Secondly, the structure is just different. So this was a very strong move, this is a weaker move, and this is a weaker move again. So actually the chances of it rolling over in any other chart that wasn't a market cap chart, I would say that this I would be quite bearish on with the double top, and I would expect it to be coming back down into here. But given it's a market cap chart, it's a little bit more challenging, because that basically means all the money's gone out of the market, which is actually possible. I mean, all the money basically at the moment is being sucked into Bitcoin, so it is possible that will happen. Anyway, so that's the challenge with this, and now we've had this giant wick. It's like, particularly on alts, we've cleared out all the stops below, we have come back into a demand, but how much of this are we going to retrace, or are we, a lot of alts made this weekly, 2-weekly supply above that I've got in bright blue here, so are we just going to come up and test this and drop again? And we're seeing, so far we've seen, I haven't looked at many alts as yet since the drop, because I've had a couple of days of just quietness while waiting for things to settle down. So it's hard to know. Yeah, so I've seen a few alts that have just bounced and gone straight back up through here, but I suspect most haven't. Most are going to be somewhere in this type of area. Certainly the majors are in that kind of area. Quick look at the others dominance chart. Actually, let's look at total DeFi quickly as well. So total DeFi, actually this was a bit nicer, so it was the same structure but stronger. So I've always said Ether and total DeFi were obviously the stronger ones. And total DeFi dominance, it was quite clear on that chart it was going to be stronger than others, so I was quite bullish at the lows on this. And this has come back down now into this monthly zone that you would want it to come into, or maybe is there a 3 month in there? No. No, it's a monthly. It's come back down into this monthly demand here. So the optimistic bounce that I was hoping for in this upper circle, there was a 2-day here that was untested, so what I was hoping for at this point was that we get a drop down, into that 2-day, a bounce back up into supply, and then a drop. But in fact what happened is it just dropped straight through and has now come back up and tested that weekly supply. So this again, like the DeFi, I would be significantly more bearish on, but the challenge is the structure. So there are 2 things here. So I trade supply and demand predominantly. I try and determine what's weak supply and strong supply, weak demand, strong demand, based on what it's managed to achieve. And what we're saying here, so at the moment what we've got here is a 2-month demand, a 1 month inside it, but it hasn't managed to achieve very much. And similarly over here, like what is this sitting on? This is sitting on, I think it was just a weekly zone in there, and I think it got wicked through. So this is not a strong zone. It hasn't, so this is the zone we're coming off. It had a move up here, it did manage to make a higher high there, it has held the same level here but has been unable to make a higher high. So now I would start expecting this zone to break. And I can show you a very similar, if you look at Ripple as a similar example on a much lower time frame. So it's a challenging one. But again, is it realistic to think that DeFi is going to 60% down in price? Not sure about that. So anyway, we're trading lower time frames, so I'm not trying to make those predictions. I'm just trying to tell you what the potential issues are with now making the bigger picture. Because of the wick, it makes it a lot more difficult. And similarly, you can see here, and I think I was looking at Litecoin, you know, we've had situations where we've had wicks, not as big as this, but we've had wicks and then we retrace the whole lot and then we end up going down, and then we've got other situations where we've had big wicks, for example here, and it's found a low and has continued up to make a higher high, but obviously the context of all these things are different. At least DeFi, the chart is overall better than others, as is Total 3. Like I said, I didn't want to go into too much detail on that immediately anyway. So then others dominance. So, very messy chart. I think with TradingView's issues as well, I'm sure some of my lines came back that I'd kind of got rid of previously. So anyway, this is overarching. The big grey zone is an annual demand on this. Let me just go up to the higher time frame so I can show you. So it's not a nice annual demand made up of these two red candles, come down almost to the bottom of it. Possibility, if we don't manage to get back up in the next 2 months and 17 days, that we're going to make an annual supply, which wouldn't be great. I think we already have a 6-month supply in there, yeah. So we've already got a 6-month supply where this green candle is anyway. So this is, again, not the nicest structure. And if we're going to say that others is going to become more dominant, i.e. we're going to have another alt season, this is not a structure that I really want to be seeing on it. This is a structure it doesn't necessarily like. So if it's a structure, if somebody asked me to buy this as an alt, I'd be saying buy down here. Like if it comes back to test there, 1.8%, that's where you should be buying this. So it'll be really interesting to see if that does play out over the next however many months, years. But that is where I'd be saying to buy it. Like at best on this, I'd be saying we're going to get some more sideways and it's just going to make a sort of bigger range through here. The problem with others' dominance is there are so many altcoins now. And so it's very, very diluted. That's also why I say we haven't had any kind of alt season, because what we see is random coins just popping. And I haven't wanted to jump on those because I don't like buying halfway up or buying tops. So what I've tended to do is some of them have managed to get aggressive long entries, but mostly I'm trying to wait for them to get the shorts and get the bigger shorts and short them all the way back down again, because I think it's been incredibly hard to choose which ones are going to pop when, unless you're either very on top of the fundamentals and Twitter and narratives and all that, which I'm not because there aren't enough hours in the day. Or psychic. That's what I was going to say. So anyway, so another difficult scenario here. Like I was predicting rejection, black circle, you can see it. I was predicting coming into here, this zone. Obviously we've taken a giant wick right down into that zone, but we have held this monthly zone. So we are holding now a support at the bottom of here. So if we are to get an up move, now would be the time, finally. Unfortunately, we do have that 6-month supply above, so whether we'd get a bigger rejection somewhere in here or higher inside that zone remains to be seen, but so we need to see what happens as and when we get this bounce. But again, the wick is challenging. We've got a close above here, which is good, but how do you trade this? Like if you're entering, like let's say you were actually trading this chart, which is how many alts look, although obviously you can't trade this directly. If you enter now, this is your entry, where is your stop loss? Like underneath the wick. So that's part of the reason I've stayed away from the market for the last couple of days, because I think it's fairly pointless. What we might find, and what I have alerted on the majors, which I'll show you in a moment, is that this circled area, this monthly level, and or even the various other levels inside might get held, like while they are no longer by my definition demand, because there's been a wick all the way through them. I mean obviously I correct that, this is a monthly zone, so it's not, that brown line isn't the be all and end all, this is the whole zone, so this is holding demand. But in the case of some alts where the wicks come all the way down through, essentially normally I would delete that zone. But where they've bounced, so if they've gone through all the way and stayed below, then I have deleted the zone. However, if they bounced up like this, then I'm leaving the zones visible, because they might then pick up these same levels of support if they retest. However, by my definition, they're not really demand anymore. So anyway, yeah, what we're really waiting for here is just more structure, and be very aware. So one of the things I've said is for alts, you can like fib this. I mean, this looks horrendous on this chart because the wick is, I think, is much bigger here, but fib this, enter around where the 61 is, or start looking for entries in that area if it comes down there. Look for shorts if we come up into weekly supply. So a lot of these have weekly, 2 weekly supply up here. I think this, I'm looking at the others dominance chart, so it's not quite as ideal, but go back to the others chart quickly. This obviously has a clearer weekly and 2 weekly supply in there. The difficulty with these is they have had a bit of a grind down, so I think it is possible. And the other challenge with the short side is that that this is the clear out of all the shorts, and that we do start a bull run and we run through all these trend line stops because we had this slow grind down there. So it's, as always, it's just look at zones as and when they're hit, and see what the reaction is. Okay, so that's the challenges of the others chart. I can't say much more than that now. So like I say, the summary of that is just shorts up here when this others chart comes back up into weekly, 2 weekly supply, or similar on any alt chart you look at. Longs, be careful because of the possibility of filling entire wicks. And also the possibility on this chart, at least, of like I say, I don't think this is a strong support zone, so I do think there is a chance it can get down to this zone below. So I just want to start to see structure. So on the long side, I just want to see more structure. I want to see this retrace a bit. Like I said, I didn't really want to talk about Bitcoin today, but there is a chance Bitcoin will make a 2-day supply today. So if that's the case, you probably want to leave that well alone as well. Okay, so let's go on to the majors quickly. So I left this on the 2-day so I could show some of the where the 2-day levels are. So again, anybody who doesn't follow me, the majors, I call them, consist of old majors, which is TRX, Litecoin. TRX was something else before, it was EOS, but recently I changed it to TRX. So TRX, Litecoin, BCH, and Ripple. I look at these not because I'm particularly interested in trading them as alts, because I find them fairly dull, but I look at them for confluence with Bitcoin, because obviously when you're drawing your zones, you can get fairly large zones, and as you saw with the wicks, you don't know how deep prices are going to go inside. So what I tend to like to look at, as I look at the old majors and the new majors, which I'll get onto in the next couple, just to get confluence. So if I can see that, and I could see actually on Friday, I think, that a couple of them are coming down, but obviously they ended up with giant wicks anyway, so it's irrelevant, but there were a couple of them that had hit daily demands and then a couple that hadn't, and it makes me more wary of going aggressively into longs if I can see that some of them aren't quite at demand. And similarly with shorts, like you might get the initial short, but what you tend to find is that they'll get there, and either then the zone might fail, or that they'll hang out there until the others are all ready, until everything's like holistically, as you see, while the market doesn't move together quite like it used to, it still does move together in the bigger moves. Like if Bitcoin drops, then there's a fair chance that the whole market's going to drop. So anyway, sorry, just checking my stream's all okay. Right, so TRX, so yeah, the old majors, TRX, Litecoin, BCH, and Ripple. New majors, I have BNB, Link, Doggy, and ADA. And then the second set of new majors, which I still kind of want to get rid of. I've been saying for ages I want to get rid of Atom off here, but I haven't managed to find something to replace it with yet. I need to actually look at what the high market cap things are, but these were Dot, Sol, Near, and Atom. But yeah, Dot's starting to look progressively more ropey. Atom's been looking ropey for ages, and I've been highly biased to the short side on that. Sols are still okay to be in here, and Near I had hoped for, but now seems to want to die again since that wick. And again, the problem with the wick is that everybody gets nervous, don't they? So they then start freaking out, and like people don't want to get in, and people are still trading this and scalping this. But I think wicks like that, either people were lucky and got in at the bottom, but probably not many, because I think a lot of people are trading spot on Binance, and Binance, I believe, blocked a lot of orders. So I don't know how many people actually managed to get in on that wick. excuse me, a quick drink. Yeah, so I'll quickly run through the majors and then we'll check this stream is actually okay. I did also have a look at the BTC pairs because that was kind of important. So TRX, I'm still quite bullish on the BTC pair, and it's another difficult, it's not a pleasant chart, so it's got that same sort of grind up that I talked about on the others chart, so it makes me nervous that it's going to fall off this level. However, you can see that dashed line is an unconfirmed 6-month level, so it is kind of holding that for support. Plus it does have a lot of monthlies demands in here. So I still want to be more bullish on this. But like I say, that trend line does make me a little bit nervous. But yeah, I did want to have a quick look at the BTC pairs on these just to check. So BTC pairs really give alignment, and we'll see that very much on BNB in a minute. So TRX, the US dollar pair, which is actually tradable. So as I've said previously, so on all of these pretty much I've set the alerts on weekly to weekly supply up here. So we had some good shorts on this from last week's and previous streams that I've had. Didn't come back for a second retest, but yeah, did reject in that original. I think I was just looking at generally at the 2-week zone in here, and then I might have had a tighter entry that took a wick before it actually dropped. As I said, this has got trend line stops above, so maybe this won't work. Like if we do start going up with some aggression, be careful of that. To the downside, it's very, very choppy. So the confident entry is 25 cents, 2 week, 3 week, 3 month demand. So that would be really where I would like an entry on this, if it's kind enough to give it. The more aggressive entry, I would just start looking from just below 28 cents, just in that area there. And I think even when I look at these, I'm still nervous about the bigger picture. But I mean, TRX, you can see it's just been grinding up since when? 2022. And it had this big, so I'll hide my drawing so you can see it had this ground up from 2022 to end of 2024, had this big blow off top, and now really again is this an A, B for a bigger C wave? Because pretty much we're overdue that, I think, on this. If you look back to here where we had the move up from the COVID drop to April 2021, it had a correction, where's that, till the end of 2022. So that's a 1 3/4 years correction here. Then another grind up for another couple of years. And now really we're probably overdue this type of move. So that makes me more confident of looking for the shorts, and that coupled with the BTC pair. All these trend line stops left below, but again, it has done that previously and doesn't go back for them. So see how that plays out. I mean, I wouldn't say be holding, shorting this now and holding it for it to go down to 8 cents or something. It's possible, but then you'd be holding for potentially a very long time. But I'm reasonably happy with looking for shorts on this in the short to medium term. Even if it does come up higher to one of these zones up here and taking out this high again, so be it. Yeah, so that's TRX. Litecoin in the bigger picture, I mean, for a long time I haven't really wanted to say much on Litecoin because I've hated this again. So macro, in fact, I'm extremely bullish on this, or I would be, but it's timing. So we had this breakout in 2017 and we've consolidated sideways in the 7 years since then. So really, this could do a ripple, I think, and in fact could do a ripple because it's been approved for the ETF, hasn't it? So you never know, this might actually do a ripple, and maybe that wick is the ripple move. We'll get onto ripple in a minute, but maybe it's the pre-move that Ripple had before blasting up. Who knows? But it has been going sideways 7 years, so I wouldn't hold your breath. But then so had Ripple. Anyway, this I was actually feeling quite bullish on at the end of last week, and failed dismally. But well, not really dismally. To be fair, I was looking for longs, and it was just verbally, so I didn't actually have them on the chart. I didn't alert them. I was just talking to the group about it around here, just saying I thought Ripple, it had made this 3-week level here, and I did think it might take off. It just didn't take off very far, and it just took out this high before the drop along with everything else. So now this is one of the ones that I've, while it's wicked $55, so it did drop 60-70% in price. It's dropped back into a zone that I would have had alerted. So obviously a lot of my alerts got absolutely blasted, and it was great because I had a nice clean out. But yeah, so that would have been a really nice entry, but obviously like anybody with half a brain wouldn't have been trying to buy these bounces. Again, the problem is it going to retrace? As I said a minute ago, the difficulty with knowing how much of the wick, so we've got a wick down here that did then go straight back up to near the highs and to test the highs before then retracing the wick and some more. So it's hard to know if that wick, oops, let's move my alert. This is a bigger wick this time for sure, but are we going to get something like this? But we just need to see PA first, aren't we? If we're going to get a consolidation like that, that is then going to push to the upside. But then I think if I scroll back, I can't remember where I was looking now. Well, there's instances like this again. The wick's much smaller, but you can just fall off a cliff, for example, like that, consolidate sideways, fall again, consolidate sideways, and then that's the start of the downtrend. So hence why we need to see a lot more on this. In the case of Litecoin, I have re-alerted, however, this monthly level. So it did have a monthly demand in here, which the wick went right through. But in case this gets picked up as support again. Now, if it starts coming down in here, so the other thing on these is the 2 monthly close is going to be critical. So you can see I've got that, the brown dash line here is the 2 month close. So we still have another 15 days until that happens, 16 days. But if we start closing 2 month supply, then I'm going to be super bearish across the whole market. So what I really want to see on this is some of this wick retrace, sure, but in this case, so some of them have been more aggressive and some less aggressive. So in the case of Litecoin, let's just see what happens when it comes back into this zone where we potentially would have longed for an uptrend if we just ignore the wick. Whether I should be doing that, I don't know. So these are not necessarily the highest probability trades. And as I say, there are kind of different levels. So some are going to hit sooner, some are going to be more aggressive. So TRX, for example, could still hold this. It's still holding a support. This actually didn't have a very big wick down at all. So perhaps this is just going to hold this level, which would be probably... No, that's going to be, so Litecoin was going to hit that before, if with market drops, then Litecoin will hit before TRX will hit. So it's something that's, I've just offset some, so we're not heavily over risked if we start taking all these trades as and when they hit. So Ripple, we talked about the Ripple pattern many times. So this is, you can see here the similarities, in fact, with Litecoin. Again, this 7 year, we didn't have the pump at the beginning, which Litecoin had, but this 7 year consolidation, which then pumped. I swear I keep deleting some of these boxes and they keep just getting put back on my chart. And then exactly what we had here on Litecoin, sorry, on Ripple, we had this wick down. In fact, I think it was this last wick here. I'll remove some of these. And I remember it created a monthly supply and threw me off. Let me have a look, yeah. So I was super bullish on this. I was talking about, as soon as we had the wick, I was waiting for the better part of a year for a wick into this area. I had entries here myself. Tested my patience dramatically. So finally got the wick into there, but the problem is when this candle closed, it closed a monthly supply. So while we had the wick, it then had a monthly supply. And in this case, it did blast straight back through it, flipped it to support, and then took off. But it still took a good few months. But we did have a wick down taking out everybody before we had that move up, which is why it's possible that Litecoin, similar structure, could do the same thing. I might have another look at Litecoin later in that context. I didn't show the BTC pairs either, did I? Anyway, so show the BTC pair on Ripple anyway. So again, really nice retest on that BTC pair there. So that has come right back down into the monthly demand, which is where I would have wanted the long entry on that, and has bounced obviously straight back up again. So it's not tradable. I just need to see, you know, which if this is going to come back down and test. It's still holding this range, and it's now tested from top to bottom of the range in a day. So, you know, and it is prone to doing that, but you can see here when it wicked up that time, then it retraced the whole thing. So it is entirely possible it comes up into weekly supply and then retraces this whole thing. So we need to be careful on this. However, if you're trading Ripple, if we see it hold, this is an annual demand. It did finally make an annual demand. If it does hold this retest on this weekly demand, just sitting on top of that annual there at what that 2,100 sats, then it's possible. On the BTC, the US dollar pair. Again, anyone who follows me will know I predicted this many times. So Ripple has this very typical pattern. I'm not going to draw it again because I have it in all my drawings so many times, but so I'll draw it here actually because I didn't draw it. So we were watching it here where Ripple likes to make a triangle like this, looks very bullish, goes up, takes out the high, and then dumps straight back through the triangle to varying degrees. And if you look back through the chart, you'll see heaps of these on all different time frames throughout across the chart. So the main thing I was looking for on this is, were we going to do exactly the same thing here in the bigger? So we had the little triangle doing it, then we made this bigger triangle, went up, took out the high, so I was looking for that drop, taking out the lows. And then just for amusement value and to upset people who were very bullish on Ripple, I then drew this. So anyway, I'll grab lots of clout if that plays out in the next 3 or 4 or 5 years. Again, that would be a very typical Ripple pattern to take out the entire triangle. But I think obviously that would need some significant, probably change across all of crypto as a whole, or regulation or whatever. And at the moment, everybody's thinking Trump is super supportive, but he's being very super supportive when the prices are quite high, so it's questionable if you ask me. So similar scenario here, so we have gone through and taken all those stops, so it could just go back up again. Ironically, I ended up, because this took so long, and I kind of thought we would get a bounce in this 3-day. I originally was saying I wouldn't consider that 3-day. I didn't have an alert here for that, but then I added it later. But mainly that's me being what I can do when I get impatient. Ripple also has an annual demand down here, so if it comes back to 83 cents, that's a hard buy for me. Then now above we've got two weekly supply. So again, I've alerted that, but whilst being conscious that we have trend line through there. We did have a very nice short entry on there. This was one of the first, so as I said, this was one of the first to hit the daily demand in here. So I think I had only Sol and Ripple. I think they were the only two because I wasn't confident this daily demand was going to hold. But then Ripple can do exit pumps. I wasn't convinced that Ripple also wasn't going to come up into this zone or that zone for a retest before dropping. So I thought it was worth looking for there, but it had a clear sideways day before then doing the bigger drop. So again, I have re-alerted this. So yeah, this monthly zone, was a monthly demand. I had to be wary of it, which is why the cross is black, because we had these minor trend line stops through there. Turned out we needed to be wary of the whole thing. But I've re-alerted that level in case it comes back and tests and wants to hold that. And then finally on the old majors, BCH. So BCH, again, has had the challenge the whole time of these trend line stops. I still think there is a fair chance it could come down and take out some or a lot or all of these. I do have this alert would be my critical level just to watch the reaction, 430-ish. There is a 3-month demand, there's a 1-year demand retest level. So behind the drawing so you can see. So this did close very slightly above that red candle at the start of this year, and it obviously, when it tested it deeper inside, it's gone up, but I kind of would expect this to take out that high. The challenge again is that we do have this giant annual supply that is coming down from, but anyway, the confluence of that monthly level, go back to the lower time frame, so we have the confluence of, in fact now it's 3 monthly demand, the 3 monthly demand here with that annual level. There's a 2-week and a 3-week demand just inside here, so that kind of area would be where I would be looking for longs, with the risk being that we could potentially take out the whole trend line. And let me put the log chart because it doesn't look quite so aggressive, but yeah, there's just a lot of competing TA here. So we have broken this larger triangle, but then we've got these trend line stops here. I've got an untested zone down here, so it comes back to 131. That would be another buy area that I would look at. But in the short term, I would look for 438 to hold. Let me just check the BTC pair on this. yeah, so BTC pair, the other thing I haven't commented on is a lot of these BTC pairs went into 3 months, 6 months supply. So this is in a monthly inside a 6 month supply, so I had alerted this monthly supply, it wicked up a little higher into it, it's got an annual supply a bit above. So it's possible this gets a move up, and if this alert goes, then that's when I would really want to be shorting the US dollar pair. However, it could just fall from here. So I need to see a bit more PA, trade the lower time frames on this, because I'm not certain about what direction we're going to go in here. It's got trend line stops below, we're coming off monthly supply, so this could retrace back down into here. Maybe we get a move down into here before a move up to annual supply, before a bigger drop. So a few different, that's been the challenge on the majors for ages, to be honest. Just these awful triangles that have been playing out, so it's made me get fairly bored of them. But as I said, for confluence, I quite like watching them. Just checking quickly, seeing if Bitcoin's bouncing a little bit now. Okay, so that is the old majors. Then the new majors, I'll be a bit quicker on these, except for maybe BNB, because again, the structures are all broadly the same. BNB, go on to the BTC pair. So BNB hit 6 month supply here. So this is, if you're trading something at all-time high, I've seen this quite a few times in the past when I see people, I remember KNC particularly, I think waves were heavily pumping, they kept going up and people kept trying to short them. But if you looked at the BTC pair, you could clearly see where, when eventually they topped, there was clear confluence. So it's similar here on the BNB pair. So it's come into the 6 month supply there. So there were two options I was looking at here. This very much mirrors what we saw on the others chart that I was looking for. Are we going to make a triangle at this point? This was a monthly supply in here, so I had an alert there. Then I'd also said there is a possibility of making this channel that I've got drawn in and going up into the 6 month supply up here, because this hadn't been tested yet. So obviously you can see that the channel has played out. I put an alert a little bit higher. There's, again, can go higher in the zone, could still go higher in the zone if it wants to, but now is the time to start looking for shorts on BNB, not longs. Again, the real horrible nerve-wracking risk on this is that that's an ABC with an ABC in the middle of it, and I'm not an Elliott wavetician, whatever they call themselves. I just look at ABC and I look very, very much at B waves, because I think B waves on any time frame is super critical, because that's when everybody FOMOs back in long. So you'll get, you'll drop down here, you start to get the bounce, everybody gets excited, everybody buys the higher low, credit to them, they get a nice run up here. But the problem is that here, at this point, and I've seen this so many times in crypto and on crypto Twitter, this is when they will start calling all-time high, and that's when I have to really fight with my inner urges to go against the crowd and to basically say, no, this is more than likely, given this is 6 month supply, to come down. I could be wrong, like there are scenarios that it does just go straight up, but there are fewer of those than there are coming back down. So for example here, we still had the correction ABC. This was a sideways ABC up into here. It then came and took out the low, so we had a zigzag correction, and then we had a massive pump. So similar here, we've come up, we've got a nice little head and shoulders. We've got now a zigzag correction. Or well, that would be the zigzag correction. Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? But that's what I trade. So I'm trading, so I look at those patterns, I look at the three waves. The only thing in this, the defense of this, is that is a strong up move. So what really, if you're going to look at a B wave, you want to see what I was seeing on the others chart, when you see that really slow, horrible grind up. So in the case of this chart, it has actually been significantly stronger. So there are actually plenty of things better to short than BNB, but the main point is don't long now. I don't necessarily think you should be FOMOing in shorts at all-time high when it could still run higher, or it could still go sideways for an indefinite period of time before it drops, even if it is going to drop. There are better things to short, however, I'm just telling you that the BTC pair is telling me not to long BNB now. So, and obviously you can see, this is another one I think that's put all my drawings back, and now my phone is beeping away. Why has it done this? This is so annoying. On the right chart, on the right layout. I deleted all these drawings again, only like yesterday. But anyway, let's pretend they don't exist and I'll have to delete them again later. So we had an annual demand here. Again, I have been very bullish on BNB on the high time frames. It's like not dissimilar to Link. We had the same, but it hasn't taken off in the same way. But we had these closes above last year, created an annual demand. In the case of BNB, it literally tapped off that and made a new high. So it's actually turned out to be a fairly easy trade. Some of the others have been a bit harder. I think Doggy has an annual demand as well, but it came down on a second wave a bit deeper inside. So they're all just different. So you can see here we're likely to make a 6-month demand. We do have a 3-month demand in here, so that would be where I'd be really looking for longs. Again, if we need to get that bigger correction retracement. Let me go down to the lower time frames. So as I've circled the area, the difficulty with this is now we're leaving so many zones behind, so we can throw those giant wicks through everything, as we saw, and went through a couple, but as we saw last week. So this was the more aggressive entry that I'd had on 5-day demand, retesting this. At least arguably that's not really an all-time high, but this is a better area lined with that that circle for as the proper breakout. And I never wanted to put an entry. Ironically, it's bouncing exactly the one I didn't look at, because I didn't really want an entry on the top of here. I thought if it came down here that we would actually get a wick further through. It hasn't quite come down to where I would have wanted to. But the bigger picture entries are below 700, and then up to you what you want to do up here. But personally, I'm looking to be biased on the short side for now. Might pick up this weekly as support, this is just too messy. The trend line stops here make me say, so like I say, 805 would be my more aggressive higher time frame entry, and 700 would be my less aggressive higher time frame entry. 700 or below, it's a big zone. Need to see more on this on the short side. I did, due to the BTC pair being in 6-month supply, and this having swing failed the high, so I had an alert here for a test of that 12 hour saying watch out for the trend line stops. Reminded me a little bit of the Ripple top. I'm not sure if Ripple did take out those highs on the first, this is the first top we had after the original Ripple pump. Reminded me a bit of the Ripple top anyway, so I said watch out for the stop, so it just swing failed the stop. So because of that swing fail, I thought it was worth looking for a possibility of a short and a retest. So that alert will go if it gets there. Then I just want to see a bit more on this. Other than that, I'll wait until lower. Link. Let me remind myself about that annual level quickly. Yeah, so similar to BNB, BCH, etc. Like they got this close slightly over. The difference with BNB is it had a significant close over that level, so much higher. So Link in this case has come all the way back down inside. And Link completely threw me off. Actually, it's just a horrible chart now. Like it made a 6-month demand, and it flipped it to a 6-month supply. So I mean, really, it was a weak demand. It was then a weak supply, but really, it's now just in this sideways range. So I was kind of more leaving it alone once it had started this last month's up move. I think the wick, so the wick low, Link likes to front run me on the high time frame, so even if this had come down to an area so I would have wanted that entry to hit back here, but then similar over here, like I wanted this entry to hit when that wick came down, I wanted this to hit, but didn't. Again, the bigger picture is that we have potentially got this double top. We've got to grind up, we've got an A wave, a B wave. Are we going to get a C wave that's going to take us back down to fairly low prices? But for now, I've set the alert on monthly demand there, to lower time frame. So for where I had previously had the alert, see if this re-picks up as support. I've also set an alert on the weekly, 2-weekly supply. We had some really nice short entries on this. I think I had 3 of them in there on lower time frames. Getting that right before that drop, so that was pretty good for the group. Yeah, so conscious that this could run through those stops up to take out that high if it wants to, but alerted these zones just to see So I guess what you're seeing now is that I'm lacking confidence. I've got alerts in because I always put alerts in to see what happens, but I'm certainly lacking confidence because the zones now are more tentative and potentially weaker than previously, or non-existent. So in the case of this, it's all run all the way through that zone, so strictly perhaps that zone should be deleted. Let me just say if the BTC pair, I think, yeah, that went crazy low. Yeah, so the BTC pair on, let's take that down there, on Link I was bullish on actually at the lows, so we had alerts for longs on this, or we take longs on the US dollar pair when this hit the lows, so that was really nice, but again came back up into 3-month and then 6-month supply, I think, up here. So I had that alerted for looking for possible shorts, so again was bearish on that. So it's difficult because the higher time frame remains bearish, we're still clearly in a downtrend. We have now had this giant wick. If we can get some sort of structure in here which holds this area as support, then we can potentially start being more bullish. But if the 6-month supply, well, I mean, arguably the 6-month supply has now played out. It's just a question of whether that's it's done, or whether the 6-month supply is now going to retrace us back down into a 6-month demand zone significantly lower. It's come back into a 2-month demand zone here, but we need to see more of this. So this I could see reversing, but I still need to see some close that gives me monthly demand, or at least on the weekly, 2-week or weekly demand that holds. And that could be more weeks, many more weeks until I see that. But yeah, so I don't really have a bias on Link right now. The high time frame remains up, but it's just how much deeper could it retrace before that up happens. And Doggy, I think it's pretty much the same. So Doggy, the grey area here was annual demand, but it came down inside it into a 2-month inside it. Again, it's got this slow grind up. This is not an impulsive move up. I have set the alert for a retest of that level. Actually, the more I look at these now, the less confident I become, I have to say. Like I did all this at the weekend, was thinking about it, but want to see what the reaction is there. I mean, even at a minimum, even if we do get a reaction on a test of here that takes us up into weekly supply before another drop further down, not sure. But again, we've had the play out of this, which is just difficult to see with the wick. It has played out this ABC, which I've talked about. It's just a question of whether it's enough. So anyway, like Doggy came through a good few zones. Obviously didn't quite hit the 3-month zone at the bottom here, but did come into, I think that's 2-month or monthly demand, almost to that level. I know, a little bit higher. Left some stops behind. So yeah, again, leaving stops makes me think it could still end up going lower. Same as everything else, got weekly, 2-weekly supply above. Possible it runs through it. In this case, it's even more possible because it's got monthly supply above that. But again, just see the reaction as and when it gets up here. This could just pick up here. This could re-pick up this monthly level. So it's up to you if you want to start looking for longs on this already. Let me have a quick look at the BTC pair. I'm going 49 minutes on this. So yeah, the BTC pair did come down. I think I've been saying for 3 years I wanted to see this monthly level tested. The brown on the BTC Doggy BTC pair, and it obviously it front ran me here, it front ran me here, it front ran me here. Finally we've got it, and we haven't even been able to trade it because it's just run through everything. Similarly, it's got this annual level. I don't know if I really. So this is the Elon pump back when Elon mattered. Yeah, but again, also was in 6-month supply on this. So basically what we're seeing is that we had those major supplies. We did play them out, but we played them out basically in a day. So it's incredibly, well, not in a day. I mean, okay, so it did take, in this case, it did take a week or two to come down, and then, but they played out the bulk of the move in a day and then bounce. So what do you make from that? I'm completely unsure. I haven't even, crypto's crazy, but I haven't even seen this in crypto before. So anyway, on the US dollar pair, worth watching that level. It's a 4-day demand and a yearly level retest again. That was the alert I originally had before it got run through like a crazy thing. Just see what happens as and when it hits that. Doggy's a little bit harder because there are lots of different levels it could pick up if it wants to. So I think again, it's probably going to be better alts to trade than all these majors, to be honest. And Ada's basically exactly the same. Ada, I think, had a really long wick, and it took out almost 2 years of PA from 2023 on this. But again, just would still have liked the wick to be longer. Would still like this to be, you know, below 17 cents really. 61 fib of that big up move. On just really basic TA, you know, it's come up, it's made a high, we've got an A, B, C. 61 fib, look for longs. That's even at the most basic TA. But now with the wick, it's hard. So I think with this I didn't, so this did come, it came much more aggressively through this monthly demand, so I'm not really loving any of these areas. So with this, I've been just more conservative on looking for potential longs again, the 3-week demand and 3-month demand level down here to coincide, 2 levels coinciding. So as I said, I've just kind of had a mix on these majors as to which I sort of want to consider if they come back towards. And then finally, the new majors second section. Let's just do Sol first. So BTC pair. So actually Sol was one of the ones I liked. The BTC pair. I previously didn't like the BTC pair because it really looks like Ether BTC. But it's now with this, it doesn't look like Ether BTC anymore. But really previously when it was this, it looked like Ether BTC, which ended up going like that. So be conscious this can still happen just with a blip in the middle. But in what I did like at least about this is that it made a monthly demand and it's held it. But again, it's come straight back into monthly supply, and sorry, not into monthly supply, but into supply. So again, it's not tradable. But so now I need to see this retrace and potentially hold through here, and then could be more confident about being bullish on this. Particularly, it also left like it wicked and took some of these stops from above here, but particularly because it could then go up and take out these equal highs in zones up there that haven't been tested yet. So of all the majors, the BTC pair on Sol was kind of the one that I thought, maybe. That Sol and TRX, they were the two. The US dollar pair didn't suffer as badly as the others, which also is more promising for Sol. So it did come back down into this monthly demand here, took a big wick all the way down. As I said, I've left all the levels in, so it looks unfortunately quite messy. I don't really love the fact I've done that. It also had this 3-month demand, which I think we had also on Lincoln LTC, but both of those just got blasted straight through. It was not a good demand anyway. I don't really love having it drawn in. But this is the one that I thought, so I actually would probably look at this monthly level if we come back there. So 155 or so. But this is the only one that I potentially put an more aggressive long entry on, that if we come back down into this new 8-hour demand. So this is the only one that I've kind of thought, okay, it's worth watching this if it can hold here. It's the only one also that's hit the weekly supply already. So again, just need to see a bit more, but I had been slightly more conservative on the alert I set on this. It was higher inside the weekly supply. I'm not sure I've talked about all of the alerts I've set on these on the short side actually, but basically all of the weekly supplies. Yeah, so here, and then yeah, this is the only one that I think is worth watching when it comes down to 183 to see if it does put in a higher low. Like I say, the wick is less bad. Let me just fib that while we're here. 61 would be down on this 12-hour level. Yeah, they're just very hard because there's such massive ranges now and there's nothing really clean. So really I want to stick with the smaller alts. Yeah, so that's Sol. And Near I was wanting to be more confident of because Near had a monthly demand in here, but the wick just went straight through it, came back into a 3-day zone that I'd had alerted previously, but again, not really a tradable entry. So exactly the same here, it's got a weekly supply, I've alerted that, and I just want to see a bit more from it. Now it's run again so deep into that, I'd probably just look for a deeper test. And I think the BTC pair on this was pretty horrible as well. Yeah, so it had a monthly demand, it's now made a weekly supply and is right up against it. I mean, overall, so for these last three, Atom, Dot and Near, all the BTC pairs were horrible. Near was the one that was starting to look like it had a bit more hope because it had this monthly zone, but that wick has just obliterated it, so I just don't know if any momentum it might have had might have been killed. it was also one of the ones that did have scope to go up here to 2 months supply. I think most of the others had hit the supplies up here by now. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, it's been in a range for the whole year. So if we're ever going to break out these ranges, then we'll start to see more on I will see weekly demands and things like that. So if after all these wicks we end up rejecting that weekly supply, coming back in and consolidating through here for another couple of weeks, making a new weekly demand, then I might be more inclined to look for long entries again. But at the moment I just really don't like them, and I definitely won't like them if they create 2-day supply by the end of the day today. Okay, so what have we got? Yeah, and then finally dot and atom. So dot, I thought we had a great entry when we hit this 3-day demand here on the low in, when was that? June. Didn't get very far though. And this is the problem, like, so while everybody can get very bullish that we're consolidating sideways, once we start making 3-month supplies, etc. above, then we're not getting high into them, and that's what's like part of the reason. So everybody's saying the TA is not there, but like that's why I showed the others chart at the beginning, because clearly the TA is there. Clearly, like, that's what I was predicting for ages. Like, the timing wasn't easy, and I certainly wasn't right on that, but with the actual general structure and what has happened, it's correct. It was corrected. It was always correct. It's just took longer to play out, and then played out in a day, really annoyingly. But really, when you've got these macro supplies, so even if I just show you, so anyone who's new to trading, if you're looking at your favorite influencers who are saying long this because it looks like a low, just immediately go up to the higher time frames and see what kind of structure you're in. So you can see on this no annual supply in there, but you can see it's closed below this green candle, so that's a 6-month supply. It's got a direct 6-month supply in there. This is what I call an indirect supply. So it hasn't tested the above 6 month. So when people are being bullish, that's fine. Like, maybe this will go up and test $6. I can be bullish to $6 if I see the right structure down here. But when people draw their arrows, I'm like drawing to come back, but when they draw their arrows going, okay, we've now found the low, we're going up to $100 on this, they're really making things up. And then if I go on the 3 month, so the 3 month again is clean. You can see there's a clean downtrend. It went there, bounced, came back up, closed back below this candle. It's a big candle. It's not high. It's not easy to trade the higher time frames, but what you can do, and what I consistently say in my streams and into my group, excuse me, what I consistently say in my streams into my group is that that's fine. You may not be, you don't have to be bearish. Things can go high into supply, but just don't be bullish in supply. Just find something else to trade. Like, don't be trying to trade dot when it's right under a 3 month supply. And sure, it might flip it, maybe it'll go up, but there'll be other things that aren't under 3 month supply that you can trade. So anyway, this I think and atom are going to be again more critical. You can see that potentially it might create a 2 month supply here. And I can show you on atom actually exactly what happened on the BTC pair. Let's look at dot BTC quickly. So dot BTC and this was again quite clean, and also why I say just don't get bullish at supply. This came up to a weekly supply there, didn't even get up to the 2 week, and just fell off it. Stronger reaction than you might expect. I say quicker reaction than you might expect, but what you expect. This is in a downtrend. And if you're guessing there's a bottom here, then that's fine, you can guess that, but you're guessing a low probability trade. Excuse me. So anyway, dot fell off a cliff, so yeah, there's nothing that makes me want to long dot at all. So again, if we do have these tests on the weekly, 2 weekly supplies above, the alert I've got here is on the weekly, could reject lower on the 2 weekly. So a lot of them they have the 2 week, they have 5 day and 4 day, the pink lines, and then they have got weekly inside. So if I was going to long any of these, I'd be looking at TRX and Sol. If I was going to short any of these, I'd be looking at dot and atom across the board, across all the majors. And yeah, so that's dot. So obviously I've got nothing on the long side, just on the short side, and it's the same with atom. Just to wrap this stream up now. So atom, like I joked the other night, even when we were falling before the fall, but at the start of the fall, sort of in here, I think at the start of Friday, I joked, like somebody said, shall I long? And I joked, we're only going to long when atom is $3, or meaning in this zone here. Unfortunately, so atom, on Perps went to 1.5, and apparently on Binance went to 1 cent. So that, you know, is all the way. So the wick on Binance, I'm told, is down here somewhere. But again, the structures speak for themselves. This has annual supply, hasn't actually tested it. I think it did test 6 months, so it made a 6-month supply. The wick came up into there, and the July 24 candle dropped off it. Then made a 3-month supply, again, closed back below, tested up inside. It was really painful being in this. But that's why I say I don't really think this is a major anymore, because it just wants to drop and drop and drop. You know, now it does have great trendline stops above, like if and when it does find a bottom, which maybe is now, because finally it's come back into the zone that we wanted longs for, that I've been waiting for since 2021. This is what I said actually when what was I looking at earlier that I said could come down? So ADA, for example, you know, when you look at something like Atom, it's really not out of the realms of possibility for ADA to come back down to the level I was suggesting at the start of that original impulse, or for any of these to start to do that. And those are the high probability trades. And you trade these middle demands, you can get, like, I mean, this sort of bounce higher, but you can get bounces off them, but quite often we come back to the source of the move. You can argue the same the other way, anyway. Maybe we'll come back to the source of this move, or we probably will at some point. I don't know, maybe Atom's dead, I'm not really sure. But yeah, anyway, but reiterate what I say, don't trade into supply. If this does give a nice long, I think it might actually be worth taking, to be honest now. So at least in this favour, you know, it's had the triangle, it's dropped out the bottom of it. If it can give some demand through here, then there is a chance now it is finally going to run up and take those stops. This is why I say I wanted to give up on Atom, because it was being so annoying, like this high not quite coming up into these zones where I really would have wanted to short. And I think just each time I was waiting for it to come back, like Atom just doesn't like to come back to zones where you want to look for shorts. So it was a 12-hour up there, so I did then finally here, I think I did go, right, let's get an aggressive shorts on this, because it hadn't tested where I wanted it to here, through here, it hadn't come up to that level. So I was like, right, here's a couple of shorts, and then on I think the day before the drop, yeah, around the bottom on Thursday, I think I was saying Atom's one to hold on to. So if anybody was in that trade, there were the 3 short entries in there on different time frames. I had a really nice trade out of that. And the other thing that was very, very clear on this was the BTC pair. So this was the only of the majors that created a monthly supply. So you can see we just had the close slightly below, tapped into it, 3-day supply inside of it, and then straight off that. And that's a monthly candle again. It took time. It did take some days, but again, very clear down structure, and very clear that you shouldn't be looking for longs on this. Anyway, just given that now it's kind of come out of the bottom of this triangle and it's left all these stops above, I have re-alerted that level, and we shall see. But I should probably look at, or if you're trading this, probably look at what the spot Binance pair is doing. I think I did have another level in there actually. I don't know. I'll watch that 2-week level as well, but then the monthly. But yeah, it's probably worth having a look if you're trading this. Be very careful if you're on the long side. Like, yeah, it might be worth having a look to see what the Binance pair tested and how that's looking. The Binance spot pair. Also have a look at some of these lower time frames down here and see if there's a tighter entry. Might be a better support, for example, under that level or around that level than on the top of the monthly. So maybe around 2.2 rather than 2.7. Yeah, so anyway, let me just see where that wick went to. Complete the verification. What do you mean it's detected inactivity? I hope there's no inactivity. Okay. The live apparently detected inactivity, so I'm hoping this is actually working and I'm not having talked to myself for an hour, but I'm going to sign off now. So anyone who is watching, thank you for joining, and I hope you enjoyed, and feel free to hit me up if you have any questions or any requests, and have a good evening.